Welcome back to another episode of the Power to Pivot podcast. I'm so excited for today's interview. I am joined by Shiraz Baboo, coach, a reality interventionist. How are you?
I am amazing. How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Thanks for being here. Fascinated because you don't have the traditional coach title. I love that you are calling it a reality interventionist. And there's some nuances there that make it different than traditional coaching. So I hope we have the opportunity to dive into that. But tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this point.
Background is a Superman bookshelf on that side and a lion on the other side. So,
very colorful.
uh, what got me here is actually having a reality intervention myself. So I started off in university. I was starting to be a doctor. I was a bodybuilder, and I knew exactly what my path was, what I was going to do with my life. And the world was my oyster, except the world didn't give me pearls. It gave me arthritis. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm kind of sore arthritis. I mean intense pain in every single joint in my body.
Wow.
Yeah. There were nights where I sipped my dinner through a straw because my jaw was so swollen and painful, I couldn't even move that. So every joint we're talking.
Wow.
Yeah. And you may not have gone through this kind of physical pain, but have you ever had that situation where you've got everything planned out and then out of nowhere, bam, it's gone and you're left scrambling?
I've
Yeah.
been there, yes.
Okay. Well, it's a page here. And like you get angry, you get frustrated, you might drop into despair, self-pity. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And of course, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And that happened to me. I went through all the emotions. I was depressed for a while. Eventually, I said, I got to get going in my life. I got to do something despite the pain. There was pain every single day of my life. And I was trying to get out of it. Like I tried medication, and don't get me started on arthritic medicine in those little childproof bottle. Oh my God, it was just bad. I tried diet and supplements. I tried yoga, meditation. Someone said magnets work for arthritis. And so I tried that. I had these magnet bracelets going for months and nothing happened. And it was almost 18 years before I met the man that changed my view on how reality worked. I had heard about a program called Combined Therapy in India. My dad said they've helped people with multiple illnesses, which is what caught my attention because you usually go to someplace for arthritis or diabetes. But he's like, no, everything that people come in with, they get cured. And I'm like, why isn't this place internationally known? Why isn't everything? What's going on here? So I went over there and I worked with this guy. And because it was India, I thought he was going to be some sort of energy healing or Reiki kind of thing. It's like heal. But all he did was sit me down and talk to me for weeks, going through my entire life history. It was like being with a psychiatrist, only he wasn't actually trying to solve anything. He was just gathering all this information on me. And when he was done, he said, well, you believe you're responsible for everyone in your life. And
what?
I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I know you don't think you do, but from everything you've told me, you've created this belief that you have to be responsible for everyone. And it started when you were about 8 years old. Okay. Now I know I'm a responsible guy. I make sure my friends are taken care of. I'm usually a designated driver, but responsible for everyone, like that's ridiculous. And even if that's the case, let's say it is, what's that got to do with arthritis? There's no connection between the two. And he said, oh, well, you don't want to be responsible for everyone. That's too much work. I said, yeah. I said, if you're lying in bed in pain, you don't have to be responsible for anyone. You don't have to feel guilty about it.
Wow.
If people see you struggling to get through your days, they're not going to ask you to take care of them. Your arthritis isn't your problem. It's your solution to the problem you're not looking at.
Was that like, was that not an aha moment or this guy's crazy moment? Like, were you fighting with it?
So I thought about it and I could sort of see the logic there. All right. It was insane way to stop feeling responsible. Right? Why would I do that to myself? And then I said, okay, if you're right, all I have to do is say I'm not going to be responsible for anyone, and the arthritis should go away. And he said, yeah, if you actually believe it deep down that you're not responsible for anyone but you don't need the arthritis.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I'm not going to be responsible for anyone but me moving forward. I woke up the next morning, there was no pain, there was no inflammation. I had more mobility. I could even breathe better.
What?
Yeah, freaking out because it's been 18 years of trying this and this and this, and nothing is sticking. This guy said, stop being responsible. Boom, done.
Did you, when you woke up that next morning, was there a part of you that thought, well, maybe either I was playing this in my head and it wasn't reality before, or I'm crazy now? Like, was
Well,
there any
it's
point?
well, I knew it was reality before because the damage was still there. My bones are still deteriorated. I'd lost almost all my cartilage, like,
Oh, wow.
right. So, but now I'm not in pain. Now the inflammation's gone. And I'm walking around. I used to do this like old man shuffle as I walk because of all the damage. And I was out and I was just motoring, passing people. And they're all the people that had seen me those last few weeks. They're like looking at me going, what the hell happened to you? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Woo. So, was there a relapse at any point? Or have you been on this trajectory of healed in that regard ever since?
There have been relapses, but this is how it works. And this is what I found out. Your mind prioritizes avoiding emotional distress over physical circumstances. So arthritis was a physical circumstance that got me out of feeling guilty that I couldn't take care of everyone. So when the arthritis relapsed, it wasn't because I lost that belief. It's because I was feeling guilty about something else.
Mm.
And when I found out what that was, or if there was another emotional distress, I resolved that, the arthritis went away again. So the next time it happened, my business was growing. And all of a sudden I started getting into a lot of pain and I was having problems seeing clients. And I was just, that was when I was just starting to speak to and getting on bigger stages. And I said, okay, something's up. Let's figure it out because last time it was responsibility. I checked, do I feel responsible for anyone? No. And then I worked with, and this is the thing, it's so hard to do it yourself, but if you have a coach, they can get it really, really quickly. So I worked with the coach, and after a couple sessions, we figured out what it was. When I was a kid, I watched a movie called The Warriors. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not.
Okay, so it's about this gang war that basically happened in New York City. And it focuses on one gang called the Warriors, and they're having to fight their way back through the city to get back to their neighborhood. So it all started because this guy Cyrus was talking about uniting all the gangs in New York into one solid force. And he's like, even the police wouldn't be able to stand up against us. And while he was doing his talk in front of like 10,000 people, he got shot. And I watched that movie over and over and over again because I love that movie. And what it was teaching me was if I'm in a big enough crowd of people, I will get shot. And I was on bigger and bigger stages speaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy
So,
smokes.
yeah. So when I found out that's what was going on and I let go of that belief, arthritis went away again.
So, you've said this, and I have to ask, because when you were originally in that first phase with your arthritis,
Mhm.
the person you were working with said if you truly believe that.
Yes.
So, is that, how do you tell if you truly believe it or not? Is it just, well, it's working or it's not, and that's,
Yeah,
it's as clear
that's
cut as
exactly it.
that? And then
Yep.
how do you get to the point of actually believing it?
That's force of will or rethinking things, looking at things from a different point of view and seeing the evidence of the falsehood of the belief. Right. So the belief you're holding, you have to invalidate it to create a new belief. And that's a problem that I know a lot of people don't address because I see in a lot of coaching programs, they're like, we're going to get you into new habits and make new beliefs. But if that's what's going on and you haven't invalidated the old beliefs, it could just lead to trouble. So like for someone could be like, I know you're afraid to be visible. We're going to build visibility habits for you. We're going to get you on stages. And if that, I'm going to die if I get too visible as running in them. Well, that's not going to turn out well.
Yeah, you'll just keep creating new coping mechanisms to avoid that situation.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, how does this play into that concept of like the reality addiction?
So when we get into addiction, it's let's just say let's say the reality you created is I don't have enough money. And you don't know why that is, but there's lots of reasons why people don't create money. So for instance, if you see rich people screwing over a lot of poor people, and you're like, oh, I never want to be like that. And your mind looks for the simplest solutions to problems. It's like, well, if we never make that much money, we can never be one of those rich people. So problem solved. Let's just not make money. And so you keep trying to make money, but your subconscious is like, don't worry, I got you. We're not going to make that money. Right. And if you hear someone complain about taxes, and you're like, well, I don't make a lot of money. I don't have to pay taxes. Good. That's another block, a building block of why it's good not to have money. And then you see someone complain about how hard it is to make all the money that they're making, how much they have to work. And it's like, if I don't make that much money, I don't have to work that hard. So that's good. Let's just keep the money where it is. And so you're building block after block after block of why you don't want money. So, but once the block is in there, when you see someone again complain about how much they have to pay in taxes, now you get a fix. It's like, I don't have to do that. It feels good. And you get a dopamine hit. So now you're building up a dopamine addiction whenever someone gives a reason why having money is bad.
Okay.
So now
And
you're addicted.
explain to all of us what dopamine does and why it's important.
Dopamine is a feel-good drug that your body that gets hit with in situations, especially things like I'm right. And I've seen people prefer being right over being rich, successful, healthy, happy. They just want to be right. So yeah, so every time you're right, I'm right not to have a lot of money. Then there's like other situations, like let's say your friends want to go out and do something, you really don't want to do it. Well, I can't afford it. And they're like, oh, okay, fine. You got off the hook, and you're like, oh, that feels good. Another hit.
Holy smokes. Okay, so I guess I'm wondering, can you work on multiple areas at once, or do you have to stick like with one? Do I only work on money and health separately? Can they be combined? Are they intertwined in some way?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
So that's, you don't know how everything's tied up in there until you start pulling things apart. Right.
Okay.
So for instance, I have a client and she used to have chronic headaches all the time. And we found out her dad told her, if you're not working, you must be lazy. But if you're sick or in pain, that's an excuse not to work. So whenever she felt she needed a rest, she'd get a chronic headache and she'd have to spend her rest time in the chronic headache. Otherwise, she's lazy and her dad would disapprove of her.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's not like he would actually think that, but that's what she decided growing up and created a belief around it. He invalidated that belief. She hasn't had a chronic headache since.
So when we talk about things like affirmations, right? Listen to the affirmations before you go to bed or while you're sleeping.
Yep.
Are they not as effective until you get to the point where you start to actually dig down into this?
Uh, yes. And affirmations don't work if your mind knows it's a lie. So if you have an affirmation, I'm a millionaire, your mind goes, no, you're not. And it just discounts that immediately.
So that fascinates me because I feel like it's a contradiction when we talk about the law of attraction, because
Mhm.
law of attraction tells you feel that it's already happening and it will come to you.
Yeah.
But if you don't believe it to even tell yourself an affirmation that it's true,
Mhm.
how is it that the manifestation works?
So feeling that it's already happened. So um, when you can imagine and feel something happening, your mind okay, so here's the thing. You have to do it from a first person point of view. And you have to hold that thought for 30 seconds or more. That way your mind thinks it's actually happening. And so now what's happening is it's rewiring your neural pathway. So it's actually growing new neural pathways saying, this is me and this is how I exist. So the problem is most people can hold a thought for 7 seconds or less, which is about the same as a goldfish. So that's why you can do these affirmations, so you get into these feelings. But if you don't get that threshold over where your mind says, oh, this is actually happening and it's real, and it has to be first person because that's how you live in the world. You see through your eyes and you're interacting. Then you're not going to have any effect. When you're doing these things for law of attraction, getting into that state is important. It's also really feeling like saying I'm a millionaire doesn't make you a millionaire, but thinking that and feeling like money's not an issue. There's no worry around money. There's just this place of freedom. That rewires your neural pathways to a point where you start thinking and seeing opportunities for money that you didn't see before, that they were always there. Right? So I had a client that she wanted to travel full time. She's like, I want to sell my house and I just want to travel. But the problem is, I know it costs money to travel. So I'll be spending all this money traveling. So I know my income's going to go down. And I'm like, but that's just a story. He's like, what? He said, have you ever been able to stay at some place for free or get massive discounts? And she's like, yeah. So why can't you just do more of that? And she's like, I guess, but then I have to keep looking for these things. And I'm like, or are they already there? And you're just blocking them off because you think it has to be expensive to travel. I know people that get paid to travel. Right. So we cleared that belief. And 2 weeks later, she gives me a call. She goes, you're not going to guess where I am. And I'm like, okay, why don't you just tell me? She goes, I'm in Texas now. I'm here on business and I'm here for a couple of weeks. I'm like, okay. And she goes, and I'm staying in a multi-million-dollar mansion for free. And I'm like, what? And she goes, and not only that, but I'm doing the work at the office of the people that own this mansion. They're away right now. So I get to go work in their office. So it's a full office environment and it's all mine. And I'm like, what? And I've got use of their cars to go back and forth and commute and do grocery shopping and everything like that. And it's all free. And I'm like, what? And she's like, this stuff works.
She's like, I'm hooked. That's it.
And it wasn't until like 6 months later, she was telling the story to someone else. And she says, and here's the thing, that was always available to me. I just didn't see it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So what is the first step that someone should take? Like, where do you begin?
So there's two major components. Number one is the visualization of the thing. And instead of trying to imagine yourself with money, what you want to do is imagine who you are, because that's what you can rewire in your mind. You can't rewire the amount in your bank account, but you can rewire that I'm more confident. Well, I don't worry about money or whatever it is. You just get into this feeling of freedom. Right. So if you want to be on stages, imagine yourself on the stage, see the audience and feel confident and feel that love coming off the audience and do your talk. And actually do your talk for at least 30 seconds so that you're in that space and your mind's thinking, well, this is actually happening. And then when it comes time to get up on a stage, that's who you're going to show up as. Most people, they want to be that person, but there's worry. What if I say the wrong thing and get embarrassed? What if I forget my lines? And so then what happens, we think, is that it's just life. They rescheduled my appointment, or or I got sick that day, or all these things that seem just like life happen so that you don't get up on stages. But really, you're putting all those obstacles in your path so that you don't get embarrassed, so you don't have those negative emotions your mind is trying to avoid all the time. But by doing these exercises where it's like, well, it's going to be great, I'm looking forward to it, I'm confident about that, then there's no negative emotions to avoid. So the obstacles start to drop out of the way. So that's what you got. It
seems so simple, and yet we struggle with it all the time.
That's because it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, or else everyone would have everything they want right now.
Yeah. What's part two?
Part two is finding out why you are stuck. And remember, because you're creating physical circumstances to avoid emotional distress, then whenever those physical circumstances come up, you want to ask, why am I creating this? Not, why is this happening to me? That's where people go, why does this always happen to me? Why am I the butt of the joke? No, why do I want this?
And that takes you from a victim to accountable, present in your life, taking ownership.
Yep.
Completely different.
Yep. So just this last weekend, Thursday, I was speaking at an event, and Thursday night, like I was supposed to speak at 7 o'clock, and I was supposed to get on a plane at 9 o'clock. And you know how long it takes to board, and it was an international flight. And so there was no way. But I'm like, everything always works out for me. So let's just see what happens. So I went to do the talk. They got me in 15 minutes early. And it's a 15-minute talk. So I finished at 7 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, now it's still going to be tight to get to the airport. And then I get a text that says your flight has been delayed. And I'm like, oh, been delayed like by an hour. So that gives me enough time. So I got to the airport. And so then I'm at the airport, I'm all checked in, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to go get in my plane. But I'm starving now because I didn't have time for dinner. And then I get another text, your plane has been delayed again. So I go into the airport lounge, I'm having dinner, I'm having a good time. And then this is where it gets a little interesting. I left my jacket at home. So I had my suit, pants, and shirt on, but I left the jacket. So I felt a little bad at that first presentation because I wasn't wearing my jacket. And now I'm going to this other place, and I was going to wear the same speaking outfit, but I still don't have the jacket. And that just sort of nagged at the back of my mind. And I'm like, get over it. Stop worrying about it. And then my flight gets canceled. So I have to go home. Right? And I'm like, did I just cancel a flight? That's insane. But when I got home, I also realized I left my charger for my laptop. So my laptop would have died during the weekend. And there was one of those big banners to advertise. I had a booth there, and that was the decoration of my booth. I didn't even think of that. That was sitting at the house too. And I'm like, oh, it's a good thing the flight got canceled. So that's why I created that reality. Right? So
that's amazing. So like, where does intuition play into that? Like, if we think about, did you have a hunch that you needed that? Like, that's where you have superpower intuition?
Yeah. Everyone does, but most people ignore it. That's why people go, I knew I should have done that. Something told me I should have. And then you just ignored your own intuition. But it's always there. It's always whispering into your ear.
Can you essentially reprogram yourself to trust your intuition? Is that like a conscious choice we can make?
Yep, absolutely.
That's amazing.
And it's fun.
Oh, it's fun. I bet it is. Things just keep it. You're reinforcing, and everything that you've said so far is things can literally always work out for you.
Yeah.
It's an affirmation. We hear it on YouTube. But translating that into the physical reality, a lot of people struggle with that, and fear plays into it. There's a lot of things we tell ourselves. And you're saying, no, it doesn't. You can completely change your reality.
You can completely rewrite your reality. And I can actually show you how to do that in a book I wrote called How to Rewrite Reality.
Seems so simple. Next to Batman.
so, and again, everything I'm teaching is simple, but it's not easy. And if you're willing to dedicate the time and the effort to do these things, then your reality will change. And things just show up. Like the event I went to that I flew away to, I was in a meeting and someone mentioned that they were speaking at this event. And my intuition said, go check out the event. So I went onto the website and I'm like, oh my God, this is like my audience. I wonder if there are speaking spots left. So I contacted the organizer and I said, I saw that you're running this event. I know it's in 2 weeks. Are there any speaking spots available? And he says, I will get back to you. And then a friend of mine, Andrea, calls me up and she goes, I heard you want to speak at the CLA Global Summit. And I'm like, yeah, why are you calling me? She goes, I'm the co-organizer. What? Right. And she goes, well, we just had someone drop out from speaking and we had 6 people on like in the waiting list to take that spot. But it's you. I'm going to just put you at the front. You got it. It's yours. And I'm like, what? And then I said, what's the sponsorship? She said, it's $15,000. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. And she goes, 750 for you. Right. So I'm like, what? Okay, you're gonna cut it in half. Okay, that's it. I'm in. Boom. And then I went to a speaker call. So I was just followed my intuition, and then boom, that's it. In the exact right time, the guy had just dropped out. They were trying to make a decision. Follow the intuition, everything works out. And then I was on a speaker call, and they said they're going through the speakers, and the guy goes, "Oh my God, there's like 19 guys and 4 girls speaking at this event. We didn't even realize we did it that way. It's way too male heavy, but everyone's paid, it's booked, it's on the advertisements, and but I'm not there yet, and they have to update the websites. So I was thinking about that, and I was talking with my friend Amy. I'm like, we need to get some more women on this, but it's not my event, and how can I do this? And I said, wait, I've got a half-hour spot. What if I give 10 minutes to a woman speaker to just get the presence there? And she's like, yeah, that would be great. Who are you going to get? And I'm like, do you want to go? And she's like, what? And I said, it's in 2 weeks. And I said, I know a couple other girls I could ask, but this is your time. Say yes or no, and then I'm going to go start making phone calls. And she's like, oh, yes. And she didn't know how she was going to make it work, the schedule, the budget, anything like that. But she got her butt there. And then when she spoke before me. She said, I'd like to thank Shiraz because he saw a need for a greater women presence in this. And the women just went nuts from her endorsement right before my talk. So that just amplified my authority. And all of this was just intuition saying, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. So it's not like you're looking and saying, intuition, what should I do? The thoughts just start showing up in your mind and you follow them.
What do you say to someone who is questioning if it's their intuition or if they're just maybe their ego, they're just sort of making it up? Like, how does one tell the difference?
So one of my friends, Jennifer, she's first of all, I'll take it from the other side, whether it's a good thought or a bad thought about you. She said, and I'm spiritual, but I love this, even though it's about God and the devil. Says, when the devil speaks to you, it makes perfect sense, but it's harsh. When God speaks to you, it may not make any sense, but it's always loving. And that's how you
Oh,
figure out which voice to listen to.
okay. I like that.
Okay?
I've never heard anybody put it like that before, but
No. But yeah, but you've heard those voices where it's like, who are you to do this? What makes you think you can get away with it? Like, no one's going to like that. Don't listen to that voice.
so simple.
Yeah.
How does fear play into all of this?
Oh, because we're wired to be afraid, right? We're still running those programs from caveman days that, anything can kill you. Except we react to getting up on a stage and getting embarrassed the same way as we would react to getting killed by a saber-toothed tiger. Right? So your brain doesn't see any difference in it. So it's trying to protect you. So we actually are programmed to have 3 times as many negative thoughts than positive thoughts for self-preservation. So when you start training your mind to have more and more positive thoughts, when you get it 1-to-1, you're just breaking even. I mean, sorry, 3-to-1, 3 positives for 1 negative. So I try to keep it at 5 positives to a negative or more, so that there's constant positivity going on in my life. I do a lot with gratitude. Right? And so that will conquer the fear. Right? Because you're going to be afraid of situations that went bad in your past. So your mind will try to come up and avoid them. And it will create physical situations to avoid fear. The thing it fears the most, though, is complete unknown. If it has no idea, nothing to go on, it'll say, nope, we are not doing that. I'll come up with any excuse I can to stay out of the unknown. And getting progress into higher levels of success is typically getting you into more and more spaces of unknown.
So is this where like failure to launch comes in for younger people and
Yep.
maybe leaving jobs after you get a certain tenure with a company, or is that how that plays out?
Yeah. Anytime, like, that's where a lot of procrastination comes in. Yeah, and you won't launch the new business. You will get sick or get too busy, or like their legitimate excuses come up because you don't know what's about to happen.
So
And yeah.
how do you break that? Like What do we do? Because
So
that's
you have to train your brain to see the unknown as a good thing, because it already knows it is a good thing in some areas, but it defaults to it's a bad thing. And I had some people, like some of my clients, it's like, when is the unknown ever a good thing? Like, it's always scary. And I'm like, do you find out the full synopsis of a movie before you go to the theater, or do you want to figure out what comes up as it comes up? And they're like, well, as it comes up. I'm like, yeah, but that's all unknown. You're excited about the unknown in that situation because it's not you, because it's someone else. But you can use that evidence of, wow, this is excitement for the unknown, to start reprogramming yourself. Well, why don't I get excited about what's going to happen to me? I don't know how the success is going to show up, but I know it's going to show up just like in that movie. So let's get excited about this and just go along for the ride.
and that feels so much better than sitting in the worry and the fear and the what if and I can't and the
Yes.
sickness and um so tell us about your books. Is it just one or do you have several?
I have two books, but the first book is actually a young adult fantasy novel called Defenders of the Scroll. I wrote that like almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Prior life.
Prior to that.
um are these on Amazon? Where can people
They're
find
on
your
Amazon.
books?
So yeah, Defenders of the Scroll was that one if you want to read a young adult fantasy, which I should probably put the sequel out because it's part of a series and I never finished the series.
Time's ticking away there.
Oh, I've actually written the sequel and I'm halfway through the final book. But I just haven't, I've been so busy and it's just been sitting there. Other priorities have come up. So, and I guess because the first book, it won a bunch of awards, but it only sold like between 500 and 700 copies. Because I didn't know that was my first thing to publish. I didn't know about building the audience and how to market properly. And I did send it into competitions and it was winning all those competitions, but that wasn't enough to really launch the book. So disheartened, moved on. Right. One day I'll get around. Right now I'm having fun changing lives.
There you go. There you go. What can we find in book number 2?
Book number 2 is How to Rewrite Reality. And How to Rewrite Reality is basically a formula for that. The whole thing is done in the metaphor of stories because everyone can relate to stories. And the thing I found is your entire life is run by stories. We have good stories and we have bad stories. And, I find the best parking spots, or no one ever listens to me. The thing most people don't realize is that to your unconscious mind, there are no bad stories. They're all good stories. So my arthritis story was a good story because I didn't have to feel guilty about not being able to take care of them. Some people have the money story. The money story is a good story because I'll use a different example. I lost a lot of money once and I felt all this shame about it. So if I don't make the money, I'll never have to feel the shame. So not having money is a good story. I know a lot of people that have that story.
Yeah.
Right. So they're all good stories. And so with the book, it shows you, and you have different metaphors. Like there's a chapter on your supporting characters, on your genre, on the character archetype, on your backstory. So it's all relatable. So people can go, oh, I completely get this. Because I wanted the average person to be able to read this and go, oh, shoot, that's how I write my reality.
That's awesome. We will put all the links, well, both links in the show notes. Where can people find you on social media? We'll also put those links in.
So it's Energetic Magic. It's on the sign there. And we had some problems getting the name. So sometimes it's Energetic Magic and sometimes it's energetic.magic, depending on what social media platform you're on.
Okay. We'll make sure they're in the links as well. Do you run any events like for people to come work with you? And who sort of is your ideal client? When someone's coming to you, where are they normally on their journey?
I have 3 programs running right now. Number 1 is the monthly magic program. That's for anyone that's trying to improve their life. We meet twice a month and I work on a group shifting all sorts of beliefs, typically around money, but we also do have relationships, health, and other things. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs in that group. And I love hearing every session with successes. And I'm hearing more and more clients, more money, more clients. And I'm like, I love it. Let's keep going. And so that's my basic group. The next group I have is called $1 Million Impact Makers. So that is for women entrepreneurs that want to really unleash their full potential. So they are sick and tired of yo-yo income, feeling like the best kept secret, and not having enough impact on them. So in this program, you become a high impact, high income, sought after expert in your field, and you get to $1 million in sales in 2 years or less.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very powerful program, and the people in it are phenomenal. I don't let anyone into the program. You have to be a fit, not just that I know you're going to do the work in the program, but I know you'll get along with everyone else. So there have been people that tried to get in this program, and I'm like, no, you can't get in the program. And they're like, you don't think I'll do the work? I said, I know you'll do the work, but I don't think you're a fit with the rest of the group. I knew if I let them in at some point, someone in the group says, if they stay, I will kill me and you and everyone else in this group. It's just the personalities don't match. So it's a highly curated group, but they are fantastic together. They are so loving. They are so supportive. They are in touch outside of the coaching program as well, supporting each other. It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was so happy it worked out like that. And then the last thing I have is private coaching, and that's for people at the high end. I basically have corporate clients, people making about 6-7 figures. It's about $50,000 to do that program. But one of my clients, she already does 7 figures, like between 1 and 2 million a year, and I started working with her in October, and between October and December, she made as much money as she did January to September. Yeah. So the blocks just kept coming up and the money started showing up, and she was working fewer hours too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for all of your clients. That's incredible. I do want to ask you, so do you feel that women have more blocks than men, or are there specific blocks that maybe are more challenging for a woman to overcome?
Women have different blocks than men. Women are more about having an impact in the world, whereas men are about making the money. Typically, there's changes. So it's called $1 Million Impact Makers because I know they want to make an impact, but I want them to get paid for it. So there's so much in nurturing that they're letting money slip. They go for the people that need them but can't afford them, rather than the people that want them and can't afford them. Right. And so it's a matter of getting that whole mindset shifted so that they're helping the most people. And the thing I've found is there's a lot of guilt of like, if I stop helping those people that are really struggling, I'm a bad person. I can't just leave them. I'm like, first of all, there's all these other people that are willing to do them and are stuck in those mindsets. I've got to help the people that need me. But second, if you're working with the people that want you and they're paying you lots and lots of money, you can form a charity for the people that need you. Yep. And then you have a way bigger impact on them than struggling to pay your bills because you're doing work for free or for very little. Right?
Incredible. What would you tell your former self if you, like, when you think back, what advice would you give to that part of you?
I would give myself the advice that I'm constantly saying now: everything's going to work out. Because if I changed something in my former self, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'd probably be like an arrogant prick at this point. So let's just leave it the way it is.
I love that you're mentioning that, because that's where forgiveness can come into play, tremendous gratitude. We don't have to live with that chip on our shoulder. We don't have to live with that bitterness. We can let it go, see it for the value that it brought to us. And that in and of itself helps us move on. Like there's a part of that we grow from there.
Yeah. And here's one thing a lot of people don't get is a lot of people have this theory that if I could go back and change this moment in my life, it would change the domino falling and I'd have a completely different life now. And no, that doesn't actually happen. Because what would happen is, like, let's say it's a relationship. If I had said yes, because I found out later that girl that I really liked was really into me. If I had said yes and asked her out on a date, then we would have got together. That would change everything in my life. I'm like, no, you would have been on a date with her. You would still think you're not good enough for her. You would find a way to sabotage that relationship, and then you'd end up single and disappointed and still exactly where you are now, because you didn't have a big enough reason to shift your mindset. It was always filtered by the beliefs you were in. So stop thinking that that one thing could have changed your life. It wouldn't have. You'd still be where you are now. But knowing what you can do and how you can change now, you can have a huge effect moving forward.
It lets off a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
When you say
exactly.
it like that. Shiraz, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We'll make sure that your website, all of the links are in the show notes to connect with you, to reach out about your programs and with questions. Any last thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
Don't be afraid to be the happiest person in the room.
Ooh, right? I love that.
Yeah. Because most
amazing.
People think happiness is like an illness. Like if you're really happy, what drugs are you on? What's wrong with you? All right. But if you're the happiest person in the room, you give everyone else permission to come up to your level.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And I'm going to add the way we wrap up every single episode. You are never stuck. You are never lost. You are never, ever alone. At any given moment, you can use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again. I'll talk with everyone on the next episode. Thanks, Shiraz.